haven't been living under a rock since this past Tuesday, the 21st, you'll know that Apple released Final Cut Pro 10, and however, you also know that it's created like this crazy amount of controversy. Some people love it, most people hate it, and there's a few people that are sort of in between. And I'm kind of in between, but I'm more to the point of loving it than hating it. And so this video is going to be, I'm going to tell you about a little about myself, like my editing history, so like maybe that from there you'll understand why I like the new version. I'm going to tell you guys why most people hate Final Cut, and then I'm going to tell you some things that I love about it, and then it's going to come together at the end and just say, a few things about it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. So first I want to say that I haven't been using OS X for nearly as long as I was using Windows. I used Windows like my entire, childhood, you could say, up until about 2 years ago, and then my mom got her first MacBook, and I started using that whenever I could, and that's sort of the point when I got like really into YouTube, because I had a camera like at all times. I could make a video whenever I wanted. I just enjoyed doing it. So using iMovie, I started making more videos. So from iMovie I went and I acquired Final Cut Pro 7. Now I want to say right up front that I'm not a professional editor, but I do need a little more than a consumer app. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. I'll open up iMovie here. So once this is open, as you can see, oops, I'll select some stuff to import. Sure, don't change, whatever. Now if I want to say add like an effect to this, or some text over the top of it, then I can't really do that. You can't move it up, there's no real timelines or anything. So as you can see, it's all just like one little film strip, and I can't really have text above it. I can have something like this that I can move up top, but what if I want something else on top of that? I can't do it. This simply will not let me do that, and I need more than that. So if you look at the end of like this, at the end of my videos, I have multiple layers there. I have the iTech City logo, I have check out my content, which I made in Photoshop, I have and 3 extra videos that people can click on. So this simply will not do it, and that's why I went to Final Cut. And so like I said, I'm not a professional, so using Final Cut is great, but 3/4 of the features I don't even know what they do, so I don't really need that. And so that's where Final Cut Pro 10 comes in handy. So I can have those more advanced things like multiple layers. I can really get in there like precision, and I can see exactly what I'm doing. So for example, like between these two clips, I can really get in there. I could zoom in nice and close to the point where it's like each one of these is a frame, and I can move around within that frame. And so using this, I could move these sliders, I could just move like specific things. So this really does give you a lot more precision. So now I'm going to get into more why people hate it, like why professionals. And I do want to say something that one of the hates that are going around that I really agree with is the share menu. The fact that they took out a lot of stuff from the export settings. But before I even get to that, they took out a lot of the preferences. If you look at preferences, this is all they have. It's just 3 little pages, and it's just that's all the preferences a professional video editor has. And that is a little bit on this short side, on a list of preferences. And really, I think to be a professional application, Apple should include a lot more features, but I'll get more into this later. It's also missing, it has a lack of, various sequences throughout one project file. So you could have different, many timelines in one project file, so it just takes up less space, I guess. XML OMF support, that was just you could export it as an XML, say. Sometimes you could even use it with Premiere Pro, so you can do cross editors. So this doesn't have that support. XML, OMF, that stuff, this can't do it. Multicam support, no, that's just useful if you're shooting the same thing from multiple camera angles. You can just match up the audio, and then you can very easily select which clip you want. So the audio stream will be maintained, but then you can get all these different camera angles. So that's just, it's a very cool thing to do, but this does not support it. Although I will say that there have been a lot of talks that this is what Apple is currently working on. Another thing Final Cut Pro 10 is missing is the ability to really customize your workspace to your heart's content. You could do that in Final Cut 7. So for example, if I wanted kind of like my browser window here, over here, I could just simply drag it and I can move this over here. I can't do that. The most I can really customize this workspace is just dragging it, making the window smaller or bigger. You know, I can't really, you know, customize it like I used to be able to. You also can't change your scratch disk location, so that's for help with like rendering and stuff. So if you really want to have 2 hard drives when you edit, I mean, it really just does make things a lot easier. So you don't have to have all these render files on your main hard drive. They could just be on some other hard drive. So you don't have the option to do that. You know, it all just goes to its own location. It also allows PSD support, so if you drag like a Photoshop image in there, it just flattens the image. You know, it won't show like it used to. So it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't play nice with Adobe files. And you also can't reconnect your media. So if say this clip from where it is now, if I moved it, then and this clip will not work anymore. It comes up with a red error screen. You can't right click it and specify a new location, find that clip, and then once you hit OK, like in the old version, if I found that clip, it would just fill it back in all my edits exactly. This, you can't do that. If your clip goes offline, you have to re-edit it, and that does make me kind of mad that it's already happened to me once, and they never even told me that. You know, like the thumbnails in the timeline here, they didn't even update to say that they were offline. It let me export it like that. So that's something that Apple does need to fix. Now here are the things that I really like about Final Cut Pro 10. First off, Grand Central Dispatch. Absolutely awesome. So for example, I'll take this clip here and I'll split it. Now keep your eye on my cores up here. As you can see, ScreenFlow has taken most of this. This really isn't from Final Cut. But let's say I want to add, you know, a 50s TV effect to this. Now watch my cores. While that renders, you can see how all of my cores pick up. I'm now using 70% of my CPU. So I'll bring up my background rendering here. And as you can see, it's just chomping away at that. I mean, look at my cores now. So the performance on this is great thanks to Grand Central Dispatch. It now utilizes all my cores. If I wanted to render something in Final Cut Pro 7, at best, it would probably use like 30% of my computer. So it's like, you know, I bought this i7 and I can't even really use it. That is now gone with Final Cut Pro 10. I'm glad I bought an i7 now, so I could really utilize this performance, and it really will make things faster. Also, another thing is that it's now 64-bit. So if you look at my memory, since I just opened it, it's not using too much right now. But right now it's using 743 megabytes. But when I was editing my last video on how to dual boot Windows 7, you know, from start to finish, I got through the entire thing. By the time I was done, it was using like 4 gigabytes of RAM. And so that, you know, it just utilizes that much RAM so that you can keep working nice and smooth. With Final Cut Pro 7, at most I would ever use was probably 1.5 gigs. And so after that, you know, the performance really did go downhill once you hit that limit. So with Final Cut Pro 10, you know, I have 12 gigabytes of RAM, so I would have to have a pretty hefty project to run out of memory with Final Cut. Another thing I like about Final Cut 10 is the amount of transitions and effects. I mean, so if you look at all my effects, I have 207 of them, and that's just with the content from Apple. And I just downloaded right through software updates. So there are many different things here. These are just photos, you know, from Photo Booth, iPhoto. I think you could just take from your hard drives as well. Music. This is Final Cut Pro sound effects. These are, I believe, also part of the extra content you could download. And as you can see, 1337 of those. Transitions. I have 88 different transitions I can choose from. If you double click, or not even double click, you just click it and you hit spacebar, it plays through what the effect will look like. Just kind of loops it. So that's pretty cool. But you know, all these different options, I have 155 different titles I can choose from. Some of them look better than others, but you know, that's a pretty nice one. So I mean, they do have a lot of very cool effects. You know, some of them are even kind of advanced. So I have 26 different, I guess they're called generators, but these are kind of like title pages, I guess you could say. But so between all those, there's many different effects that you can apply to your videos, and I'm sure that Apple will only be coming out with more as time goes on. Now, despite what I said about not liking how I couldn't move things around, I honestly don't think I'd really need to, because I do like this interface as it is. I mean, it's a nice looking interface, it's nice and clean. I do think it could use some performance enhancements, definitely, but this is like a lot of people are saying, it's version 1 software. Like this is day 1 software, it just came out. So there will be performance updates, there will be many different updates to this application, which I'll get more into that later. And so the last thing I really like about Final Cut 10 is that it saves constantly. So right now it's not saved. Final Cut just saved it. With every cut you do, with everything you do, Final Cut saves it right after that. So this does save absolutely constantly. If you go up in this menu, there's not even a save option. It just saves constantly. I think iMovie does that as well. So that iMovie did crash on me once or twice, but I never had to worry about losing stuff because it does save after every single edit. So even though it crashed, I was able to pick up right where I left off. So now I'm going to get into my thoughts on this whole thing, why I think that people are being way too harsh to Apple. First off, I can see, like I said at the beginning, I can definitely see why professionals are, I guess, up in arms, kind of mad at Apple, because they did remove a lot of features, and people say, you know, this is just iMovie Pro and all that other stuff. I mean, I definitely see where they're coming from, especially, like I said, with the lack of preferences, the lack of export options, you know, just to be able to export very, I guess, in depth. For instance, from here I can choose H.264, but nothing else after that. You know, if I want to export, that's it. Those are the only options I get. And if you want to have any more, you have to buy a compressor, which is another $50, which still isn't a bad price compared to what Final Cut used to cost. And like I said, I'll get more into price and everything later. But I can definitely see why the professionals are complaining. It just doesn't seem as, you know, precise and as professional of a video editor. But then again, if you're a professional, then you should know by now not to buy day one software. You should know that. Go online, wait a few days, see reviews, you know, see what people think about it, and then you can make a decision to buy it. Wait for the prosumers. Like I guess I would call myself a prosumer because I'm nowhere near a professional. But then again, I do enjoy doing this stuff. I do it very often, and I do need more than what iMovie provides. So I would call myself a prosumer. So wait till people like me on YouTube buy it. Wait till they review it. You know they're going to. I mean, within a day there was hundreds of Final Cut Pro 10 first look videos and everything. So I mean, in this age of technology where people have instant access to these applications, instant access to video editors, and instant access to upload it, if you wait 2 hours after something comes out, you will see videos on it. You know, it's their fault that they bought it day one without, like, going into it without a review. And no, I understand that they had high expectations, but you should still never buy anything that's for more than $10 without looking at it first. And besides professionals, I mean, there's even people that have upgraded from iMovie, people that don't even have iMovie, people that just run Windows, that look at this and they say, oh yeah, it sucks, you know, because it's a bandwagon thing. If someone has a legit reason to be upset with Apple, everyone thinks they have that exact reason to say, oh, Apple just sucks, you know. When it comes to Apple, it seems to me that if you don't use OS X, you either love it or you hate it. You know, whether you know nothing about it or you know a little bit about it, you either love it or you hate it. And so the people that hate it use other people's reasons they hate it as their own reason to hate it. And so they just say they hate it without ever even using it, without even looking at it. They'll say, oh yeah, I've heard it sucks, it must suck, I would never use that, it's stupid. And people just sit there and give it 1-star reviews even though they've never even used the thing. So I just want to say right now that personally I do like it. Like I said, I still have a lot of learning to do. I'm in no way fluent with this application at all yet, but you know, I have more than enough time to learn how to use it. And like everyone else has been saying, you know, that's what updates are for. You know, like I said earlier, this is version 1.0 software. This is day one. Apple just released this. Every single version of day one software has updates almost immediately. Even just PS3 games. You know, if you have a PS3, you know that if you buy a new game within a couple days, you know, they release a patch for it that you can download, and then, you know, some things are fixed. Software is buggy. Software does lag sometimes. Just give it a minute. You know, give it a few days. There will be updates for it. It will get better. Apple will include all these professional features, and over time, this will probably scale up to, you know, the Final Cut 7 user base. People will end up being happier. And saying that, this is only $300. Final Cut Pro 10 or Final Cut Pro 7 was like $1,000. That's a 70% price drop. You guys have to give Apple some credit there. For the things that this can do, you know, Grand Central Dispatch, 64-bit and everything, it definitely outweighs, at least in my opinion, what it can't do. And like I said, that's coming from a prosumer point of view. I'm not a professional. You know, professionals are lacking all those features I mentioned earlier, and I can understand that. But, you know, just wait. You know, they're the ones that bought it right away, and they will be updated. So before this video gets any longer, thank you for watching. I'm at CPU Kid on Twitter. Also check out itechcity.org and at itechcity on Twitter. And let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.